Hi guys, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the morning after. I am your host Sharleen Joynt, and today we are recapping episode 4 of Colton's season of The Bachelor. Season 23, how did we get here? All right, so in every recap, we're gonna have a moment called A Moment That Delivered, and this is brought to you by Skip the Dishes, which is Canada's leading company for delivering food to your doorstep, either via the website or via their app. So yes, this moment today is, for me, the makeup between Hannah B and Kaylin. I thought this was a real feel-good moment. It felt like a step forward for this show in a weird way, and because the reason why I feel it was a step forward is because it was shown. And we know that makeups happen on these seasons all the time. It's just very rare that we're actually shown it because it's better TV for them to hate each other. And so I really liked that we were shown this makeup, and it just seemed like a really mature moment, especially given they're both 23, 24 years old. So, and also, especially in light of Kaylin's sexual assault story, it really felt like a moment where like women could come together. It was just it just felt like a surprisingly mature moment in on this show. So yes, that was this week's Moment That Delivered. Okay, so now I'm gonna go through in chronological order. Chris Harrison arrives in the mansion to tell the ladies that they're going to Singapore, which I've gotta say is a pretty darn good episode 4 travel destination. Usually they go somewhere regional, so this was really, this was pretty impressive. Tayshia gets the first one-on-one date in Singapore. They go to Sentosa, and despite the fact that they both have a fear of heights, they somehow end up on the bungee jump date. I mean, it's so funny. This is like par for the course now. It's like, you write down a phobia you have, you will be doing that on your one-on-one date. I see a lot of compatibility between Tayshia and Colton. It's just her airtime. Her airtime is what's getting me here. I really like her. She's sweet. They seem to have a nice time together. They've got good chemistry. We weren't shown their first kiss, which apparently happened on episode 1. I only know that because I stalked her Instagram. And we were shown their second kiss on episode 2, just in like a montage of him kissing girls. So it's safe to say that they have something, and I can see her making like Final 4 maybe, but I just don't see her winning based on that alone. The big reveal here in the evening, of course, is that Tayshia's divorced. I thought the way Colton responded to this was great. In general, he's really good at pulling from his own experience. He said, I have divorced parents. I've learned that I can't be the one to judge somebody else's happiness. I mean, that's just a really nice thing to say to what she's just told him. He's good at not making it about him, but relating to what they're saying as best he can and offering like a supportive, appropriate response, which... It's sad that this is something I have to comment on, but it's not something that everybody is capable of. Okay, moving on to the group date, where Colton takes the ladies, 13 ladies, is a really big group date, around Singapore to try various foods and go to a market and all that fun stuff. Demi basically treats this like a one-on-one date. I like Demi, but this kind of behavior, I'm always like, oh, it kind of makes me cringe a bit. I'm more in awe that she's able to just like hop on his back and be there when 12 other girls are on the date with them. Like, it's sort of like, it's so shameless. It's not something I'd ever do, and I'm just like, oh my God, how are you capable of that? In general, I agree with Demi when it comes to conflicts with the women, but I kind of wish she would just sort of, you know, it's not totally necessary to climb upon his back. In the evening, okay, we see the beginning of some conflict brewing between Courtney and Demi. Courtney's stress levels are through the roof, we gather that. And this kind of behavior always gets to me because like I get it if you feel invisible and you're like, but that's just sort of how the cookie crumbles. If you think about it, only one person's gonna win this whole thing. Everyone else is going home at some point. So, it's sort of like just accept the experience for what it is, and chances are you're not going to end up with a guy, and why would you want to end up with a guy that didn't want you either? This is something I always struggle with every season. I understand there's so many outlying factors now because there's such a benefit to staying longer and getting Instagram followers and having your 15 minutes of fame and all the whole kit and caboodle. I just wish people who like get in their head like this are just able to be like, well, you know, probably going home sooner than I'd like, but, you know, I'm making good friends and having a nice time. And she just seemed completely incapable of doing that. And regarding Demi and how she took a second time with Colton, I don't generally think you should do that, especially if other women haven't had their time. But what bugged me here is that Courtney did not take responsibility. It's the entitlement. Like, she shouldn't have to go after Colton and make time with him when everyone else should or is doing that. That's what bugged me in this situation. And she never took that time. And so I don't think it's Demi's fault in this situation that Courtney didn't have time. It was clear she wasn't going to go take the time. Okay. Ugh. Moving on to Kaylin's one-on-one date. I always love the splurgy shopping dates. I can't help myself. It's like the shopping montage from Pretty Woman, and it's just so much fun. What can I say? I love that. I love it. Every single season I'm like, oh, take me shopping. It's so much fun, especially Kaylin, who has such like a pageant way about her. Like, she would try to dress and like glide out, and I was like, yes, it looks great. So yeah, I really enjoyed this date. And it's always also funny how they make it seem like Colton's the one buying her these things when we all know that's not the case. It's either gifted because of the screen time they're getting or the show's paying for it. Usually it's gifted, and it's just funny how they're like, oh, he's so generous. It's like, yes, he is. Okay, in the evening, on a more serious note, Kaylin reveals her sexual assault story. This was, I mean, unbelievably chilling. I got choked up listening to this. And as horrible as what she had to go through was, I'm glad it was addressed on the show in a way that felt respectful and not like it was being exploited, and how they used it to shine a light on not only how common this is, but also how commonly assaulters get away with it and how they aren't usually held accountable. And so it just sort of felt like a moment for a bigger, more important message than what we normally see on this show. So I thought not only was she really poised in how she delivered this horrible story, but also I was impressed by the show with how they handled it. And also, this might be the first time in history that the lead didn't actually present his date with the rose. I thought this was interesting. It was a given that he would give her the rose, and it almost felt like to give her the rose would be sort of, I wrote in my recap, just trite, and I agree. It's like, yes, she's getting the rose. We don't need to make this moment about the show again. Okay, after that commercial break, we skipped to the rose ceremony. It's kind of funny how the shot, remember, you know, in all the previews we see Demi being like, oh, like will Colton lose his virginity in Singapore? Maybe. And then we show this shot of him like sort of climbing on top of a girl in the bed. And it's just hilarious that, of course, it was Hannah G. It was not Demi. And it pretty much, you can assume if you see something in previews, it's not what happens. I mean, more of Courtney versus Demi here. In general, I talked about this last week. You should never talk about the lead in your one-on-one time. It never pays off. That said, what did I write here? So in this sense, I think both Demi and Courtney should have held back, but especially Courtney. Especially Courtney, who didn't even get that one-on-one time at the group date. That's what's so hypocritical to me, is that she was so upset she didn't get that time, but then when she finally did get the time, she had lost time to make up for, she chose to use it to talk about Demi. And who knows, maybe she knew she was going home and just wanted to like get that in at the last second, but it was pretty rich that she was going on and on about how she didn't get her time and acting like she was so much more mature than Demi, only to engage in the exact same behavior, but then to lie about it. This is the part that really got me, because at least Demi was like, yeah, I talked about you, and Courtney was like, maybe I should have talked to him about you, and it's like, you did talk to him about her. And so it's that sort of, the fact that she didn't just own her behavior, that just really drove me nuts there. So in general, I thought Courtney, and also she talked about Demi before she knew that Demi talked about her. So in general, for Courtney to criticize Demi about talking about her is like the pot calling the kettle black. It was just like, ugh. Which is a shame, because otherwise I liked Courtney until this episode, but this episode was not a great showing. Stress definitely got to her. Okay, so that's it for episode 4. Thank you for tuning in. My Flare recap is up, and later, of course, my Pretty Pandas recap will be up, and I'll see you guys here next week on The Morning After. Bye.